Welcome back, everybody. We're off and rolling here on a Thursday morning edition of Hot Mic. Much more on a potential Summit League football plan that was floated out that didn't get really too much traction. We'll do that coming up later on in the show. Pretty pumped to have our first guest here to start. We got week 0 coming up in a couple of days. I remember talking to our first guest about week 0 about 10 years ago. He just grinded his teeth at having to go to Missoula, Montana. This time he's going to Lawrence, Kansas to get ready for his head coaching debut at Fresno State. Former Bison head coach Matt Entz joins us to get our show rolling here on a Thursday. He didn't lose my number. He didn't give me the Aaron Rodgers treatment, so I appreciate that. Thanks for doing this, bud. How you been?
Been good. It's great to see you, Dom, and appreciate the opportunity to be on the show today.
All right, so here we go. Week 0. How early do you get going? Have you started like right after July 4th? When did you start practice?
It felt like it. Our first practice was July 22nd. We've been in fall camp, or we've been in preparation now for over almost a month. It required some unique adjustments to the schedule. We only had 7 weeks of summer workouts versus 8 that normally would be provided to you per NCAA rules. We got going really early, a couple days before Memorial Day in the month of May, just to try to, catch up a little bit. But it's here. It's exciting. Trying to figure out kind of who we are and what we are. That's everyone needs to play that first game for an evaluation piece.
The challenge of doing this before everybody else. I remember talking to you about everything seemed rushed when the Grizz game, when the Bison went to Missoula. Just, is it everything compacted because you're playing a week earlier?
Well, I think so. I think just in the calendar that college coaches live, the month of June is a rat race.
Yep.
I mean, your camps, you have your OVs, you have your own camps. You're trying to game plan maybe your first 3 non-conference opponents. There's everything. The minute that month's over, you try to give your coaches a minute to step away and to be dads and husbands and get that honey-do list done. But this summer, we had to come back even a week earlier just to get ramped up. And then you throw in first-year head football coach, first year of the staff. I think those two things compound one another and make it probably even a little bit more pressure-packed than normal.
I was talking about this before you came on, of just when you got the job, then trying to figure out who's going to be on the team, getting a team. Give us the lowdown of what we chatted a couple times that first 2 months. What was that like?
Well, when I got here late December, there was probably anywhere between 10 to 15, 16 guys that were in the portal from Fresno State. 5 of them came back, had opportunity to sit down, talk to them. And they were the right 5 guys that we felt like could help us, guys that had multiple years of eligibility. One of them's, one of the top prospect corners in the country right now, and super excited to have him back, one of our tight ends back. But they just wanted to know what the vision was and what the approach was going to be moving forward. I will say this, the people in the Central Valley love Fresno State football, very similar to, what you see up in the Red River Valley. Everyone loves the Bison, and there's a lot of similarities there. The month of January and or late December, we probably had 30 OVs, transfer OVs. We were a little bit atypical this year, not what we want to be long term, but we brought in, 22, 23, either junior college and or 4-year transfers to help us. A lot of the junior college kids had only played 1 year at the junior college level. We call them super freshmen, with the idea they're going to have a 5th year at some point. Yep. The NCAA is going to give everyone 5 years, and we're banking on that, and we're going to take advantage of it too. But and then of course, we started spring ball extremely early because we wanted to have an opportunity. We knew early season, well, let's go early spring. So if we do get banged up, gives us time to get healthy, get ready, but also let's find out who we are a little bit and kind of what our roster looks like. And so it's been go, as you can imagine, but that's just the nature of the college landscape and college football right now.
I saw you in Frisco, which was beyond wild that you were there. Chris Kleiman was there. Gene Taylor was there. Brent Vegan's there. It was like just culmination of how we were chatting on the phone about this. Describe that, being dad in the stands at Toyota Stadium for that game in January.
Well, it was unbelievably fun to see so many familiar faces, families of young men that I either sat in their home, sat in the office with. I'm not going to lie, it was probably just as stressful being in the stands,
I bet.
and probably because it was the emotional ties that I had with every single kid on that football team. If there was 120 kids on the team, I probably had interaction with all 120 of them at some point, and had a relationship with them. So, me wanting Kellen to have success and his teammates to have success, but also being personally invested in all those young men. I wanted to see them, finish the right way, and they did. And here just 3 weeks ago, I had dinner with Cam Miller, and I was in Las Vegas for the Mountain West conference meetings. And him and I were able to meet. This was right before OTAs were starting, and how fun was that just to hear, his perspective on things, and making a move to the NFL. I've shared some text messages with a number of different Cordell yesterday with his injury. The two Bash brothers up in Seattle. I've talked to both of them, Gray and Jalen. And so just to continue to see those guys have tremendous success and doing it the right way, I couldn't be more excited.
How crazy is that? See that last week, the two of them are starting next to one another. They did that for you countless times here.
Yeah, well, when they drafted Gray, and when they, meaning Seattle, drafted Gray, if I were a betting man, I'd have bet that was going to be the case. Those two guys already have. I mean, think of the just familiarity they have with one another. How it's almost unfair, the communication. I mean, those guys are probably, they know what each other's thinking before they have to say anything, and that's and just the continuity that left side of the line is probably creating. And then to see them have great success, where they run for almost 120 yards in the first quarter in their last preseason game, and I got to believe, both of those young men, because of how they're wired and the character they both have, are going to be fan favorites in Seattle for a long time.
I have to ask, for building your staff, there are a lot of familiar names from the Midwest. How important was that to keep the roots here, but also make sure you're tied in California, where you've tried to lay roots down over the last year plus?
Well, it was that along with recruiting in that first 4 weeks of getting this job, Dom, was it was a big undertaking, but exciting. I tell everyone I could have filled the jobs within 24 hours of being named head football coach, but that wasn't the right thing to do. It was take my time, make sure we did the right thing. I retained two coaches from the previous staff. J.D. Williams, who was played with the Bills, that back during their Super Bowl time, and so was a tremendous first-round draft pick, great coach on the West Coast. John Baxter, who's been at Michigan, at USC, has been at Fresno State for 18 years. Two guys that have great inside knowledge of the community, of the university, and could give me kind of a heads up on, hey, these are the speed bumps that you're going to, that you'll see just at any institution. And then, being able to, go out and get Nick Benedetto, Josh Davis, Brian Ferentz, was awesome. You look at Nick's success he had at Northern Illinois, the number 4 ranked defense in the country last year. Josh did a tremendous job at University of South Dakota. And since his arrival, just their ascent from an offensive standpoint become much more difficult, improved dramatically as a football team, complementary football wins. And so, and we're trying to utilize some of these resources. We're in Chicago. We have 3 kids from Chicago on our football team. We're in the state of Nebraska. Omaha doesn't have a college football team right now. And so why wouldn't we get in there a little bit? And it's an easy Southwest flight to Fresno, California. You can leave your winter coats back in the Midwest and come out here and enjoy it. The coolest day is maybe 65 degrees.
Yeah, there you go. Have you tapped into the cradle of football in Waterloo, Iowa yet?
I have not. We do have 2 kids from the state of Iowa on our football team right now. So we do have, a little bit of Midwest feel. We have a young man from Minnesota, a couple from Wisconsin, and we'll continue to do that. We feel like that's an important area. We have so many great relationships, and what's exciting is high school coaches are responding. They're getting us names. They're hey, have you heard of this kid? Take a look at this kid, and so those relationships are paying dividends for us now.
In a ultimate moment that made me feel old, your starting quarterback is Kurt Warner's son, and EJ, which is wild. Tell us about him and why he won the job.
Well, EJ, of course, like you said, comes from a football family. His brother played at Kansas State for Coach Kleiman.
Yep.
I met Kurt years ago when I was an assistant coach at Northern Iowa, and we needed some experience. We needed some competitive edge in our quarterback room when I first got here. Just felt like we had talented kids but unproven kids, and so needed to bring someone in who could elevate the competition, but also had some reps under their belt. And of course, EJ had been at Temple, then at Rice. Rice made the offensive move to option football. That's not his cup of tea. I think he can help us in the quarterback run game a little bit, but has thrown for almost 9,000 yards in his collegiate career. During the first 14 days of fall camp, did a tremendous job of operating our offense and learning our offense, making appropriate plays. We tried to keep track of every metric that was out there, from completion percentage against pressure, completion percentage against zone, how was he in the red zone, all these things, just trying to make sure we had the numbers matched what we were seeing on the field, and and his command of the huddle. And again, I think some of that comes from experience too. We have actually 3 young men on our roster that I feel very comfortable with, that if we had to play any of them, we could win games. But EJ was the young man that elevated himself and did a great job, and has continued to do a great job. And it's been fun to see how our team has galvanized around him here in a short amount of time.
I gotta ask, you've been a head coach before, so it's nothing new, but what do you emotions on Saturday night for you when you're on the sideline before kickoff? What do you think that's going to be now of a FBS job, head coach?
Well, one of the things, and it's funny, Boost, people that don't understand the value or the logo or the branding of North Dakota State will, I get that question a lot. What do you think about, oh, you're an FBS coach now? And I'm like, when I was at NDSU, we never talked about being FCS. Yep. We talked about being a mid-major program because we felt like we belonged in that conversation. And so I don't know if it'll be any more than what I ever felt when I was at North Dakota State. I'm super excited to be here. I'm excited about the young men that we have on this roster. We have a lot of work to do. As I said, we have gotten we're an unbelievably improved football team since January when I arrived, but I don't know what that means right now. I haven't coached in the Mountain West. I haven't really been a head coach on the West Coast. And so we're going to find out a lot about our group on Saturday, but we know this, we're going to continue to get better as the year unfolds.
And then you're going from there to the Pac-12. You're going to be a Pac-12 head coach next year.
Yeah, there's some that's exciting right now. The Pac-12 is growing, trying to expand. Scheduling becomes a little bit unique right now because of the even numbers. What do we do with that eighth, trying to find that 8th conference game? I got to believe there's still some shakeup out there in the world of college football and conference realignment. But that's exciting right now. And it's exciting because our AD and our president are both huge football fans. Continuing to elevate things from a facility standpoint, from a budgetary standpoint. Dom, you and I have talked about it till we're blue in the face. College athletics has changed more so in the last 6 years than it did in the previous 100. And if you stick your head in the sand, it's not going away. And so you need to find ways to work within the system. And that's what Garrett, our AD, has done. And he's done a tremendous job of elevating our revenue share. We call it recruit, retain, and develop, because that's what it impacts exactly, are those 3 areas.
Couple minutes left here with Matt. We appreciate his time. I know McFeely bugged you this summer about his project he was working on the top 75 games, which you were involved in quite a bit of those. What was your pick? What did you go with number 1?
Well, I got to believe it was probably the Iowa game.
Pretty good.
Was probably number 1, just being an Iowa native, growing up about 40 minutes from Kinnick Stadium.
You were pretty emotional after that one. I remember that. No doubt.
It was, and I have great respect for the University of Iowa and Coach Ferentz there, and have a number of good friends that are on that staff. But just, growing up, having gone to the games, I think the other one that I mentioned, and it wasn't the win, but it was the experience was probably the Target Field.
Yeah.
I felt like 40,000 fans, downtown Minneapolis. The Bison took over, and we just kind of flexed our muscles that day. And a lot of people took notice. I think
everybody took notice when Trey Lance hit a 60-yard bomb to Phoenix Sproles where he ran for a touchdown. Like, oh, you might have a quarterback there.
Yeah, that helped. Well, I remember there was a lot of we went through that process with Trey and Zeb that year too to figure out who was going to be our starting quarterback. And this young, uber talented kid from Marshall, Minnesota. All of a sudden now he's doing great things for the Chargers in the NFL.
Last thing, you've got a fireballer pitcher in your family. Connor, your youngest, is going to be playing Division I baseball. For a guy who was pitching here at West Fargo Cheyenne, now he's going to be playing out at Sac State.
Yeah, you're exactly right. He this summer he played at the Waterloo Bucks in the Northwood Leagues, which was exciting because that was my hometown. And so Grandma and Grandpa got to see him play.
That's awesome.
Family, my sister and everyone. About midsummer, as he was kind of wrapping up, Sac State started to have some conversations with him. And I actually, because it was the month of July, I got to go with him on the official visit. And it was great. The head coach at Sacramento State used to be the head coach at South Dakota State. So he knew where Fargo was. He knew where Fargo Cheyenne was. Had a relationship, knew people back in the Midwest. And it looked like he had kind of retained some of those relationships in the Midwest, knew the coaches at DMAC, which then, again, recruiting is all about continuity and knowing somebody. But he's up there right now, a little bit of preseason warm-up. He looked at their schedule and goes, Dad, we have an opportunity to hopefully, if I do well, I can pitch. They go down and play LSU this year.
Woo.
And I'm like, boy, long ways from Young Field in West Fargo, buddy. But good for you.
That's awesome. It's great to see you. I know you're getting crazy busy here, getting ready for the opener. Thanks so much for doing this. Good luck on Saturday, and we'll catch up during the season, all right?
You bet. Dom, thank you. Hey, best of luck to the Bison, and best of luck to all the fans back in Fargo.
Thanks, Matt. Great to see you, bud. There he goes.
You bet. You take care. Thank you.
Matt Entz, head football coach at Fresno State. Bulldogs open up on Saturday night, 5:30 Central Time, as they'll take on Kansas to open up the 2025 season in Week 0. That's on Fox. We're overdue for a break. We'll get caught up here. We'll wrap up Hour 1. Back on Hot Mic on WDAY Extra, KSFL, KMBN, and Inforum.com right after this.